Hello, and welcome to this podcast episode of the Hidden Heroes of Tech. This is the show where we shine a light on the brains behind all the successes we see across all industries. It takes more than text to get a product in front of a consumer. People from sales, go to market, strategy, marketing, HR, finance, operations, and of course, the techs themselves. We talk with those we don't know much about and hope to learn some nuggets of wisdom. Our sponsor for today's episode is therevenuedoc.com. I'm your host, Mickey, and today we're diving deep into the world of career transformation with a special guest, Sharee Wells. Sharee is a certified coach specializing in helping individuals overcome career obstacles and achieve their professional goals. With Sharee actually has a direct and creative approach, and she serves as a strategic thinking partner, guiding clients through career challenges and empowering them to take action. She's certified in business, career, and marketing strategies, and Sharee's expertise extends to group coaching, fostering better communications and collaboration amongst teams. Clients worldwide praise Sharee's ability to provide clarity and ignite transformative change in their careers. From refocusing career paths to navigating daunting transitions, Sharee's guidance leaves a lasting impact. So I'm just waiting for Sharee to ring the doorbell to come into the actual studio recording room. And when she does, I'll get Sharee to actually introduce herself. Oh, there it is. The doorbell's ringing. Let me just get her in. Hey, welcome, Sharee. How are you doing?
Hi, Mickey. I'm doing great.
Awesome, awesome. So, Sharee, I've just given an introduction to you. Tell us a little about who you are. Maybe you can add a bit more color to what I've said.
Well, I focus on folks who have something that's preventing them from getting to the kind of success as they define it that they want. And oftentimes that is in a matter of their personal branding, as sometimes it's in a matter of choosing their targets, and other times it's a matter of being able to negotiate for what they want. So, a kind of a specialty of mine, one of my certifications is from the Harvard Project on Negotiation. And so it's one of my favorite parts of coaching.
Well, thank you for being here today with us. So, Sharee, the topic of today's conversation is brand boost, elevate your personal branding for job offer mastery. It's a bit of a mouthful. So, basically, I think what this is saying is, your personal brand is really, really important and trying to master or helping you to master how you negotiate for your job offers and negotiate salaries. Would I be right? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's important to every aspect of your career search. First, you have to know who you are in the workplace. It's absolutely critical. And that's the first component of developing a brand, whether it be, Apple or McDonald's, or, they have to know who they are and what they stand for. There's 50,000 hamburger chains, but there's only one Golden Arches.
Yeah, of
So
course.
uh, that's where you start, and then you build your campaign around that. You target your industry, your position title, even your location, so that people will be able to figure out who you are when you're talking about yourself, when you're introducing yourself. Another part of branding is that you know what it is about yourself that you want to promote. And those things that you do very well and that you enjoy doing and that you're proud of doing and you think you do as well or better than other people, those are the kinds of things you want to promote about yourself in your brand. So you want to put those in your resume. You want to put those in your introduction to people when you do your elevator speech for networking. You want to put your brand in every aspect of your career search, and certainly in your negotiations, because when you get to the point of mastering a job offer negotiation, you want them to feel justified in hiring you because you're the best at what you do.
You call yourself the obstacle coach. And
Mm.
I think before we get into the core topic, I think we should really try and find out who is Sharee. Is it okay if I ask you a few non-technical questions about who you are? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, so this is going to be a bit of fun. So nothing's heavy. So the first question for you, Sharee, we really want to understand who is Sharee. So the first question is, what did you have for breakfast today?
Oh, people really are going to think this is weird, but I love it. So I have plain yogurt and I put little grape tomatoes on top of it and salt.
That sounds like an actually savory breakfast.
It is my favorite breakfast to have. So that's what I had this morning.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. So
Mhm.
this is how are you doing today for real? How's your feeling? What's going on with you today?
I think I lead a bit of a blessed life. So I'm actually doing well almost every day. I'm a hopeful person and positive. So I really do well, although I have some difficulties in my life and I'm not good at everything. Honestly, I don't like paperwork and I don't like doing the numbers and that sort of thing, which, you know, but oh my goodness, give me words or give me people and happy, happy me.
Okay, let's go to the next question. See, learn a little bit about you. Okay, if you had a choice between two superpowers, being invisible or flying, which would you choose and why?
I really, really, really want to say both um,
Oh,
because
interesting.
I
No, you
love to
can't. You can't say
travel.
both. You have to be one. You have to choose one. You can't frig the system like that.
All right. In that case, I think I'll just go with flying because I love to travel and being able to be different places on a whim would be exciting, I believe.
Another question. I think this is the last one I'm going to ask you on who you are. What is your spiciest opinion that most people disagree with?
I get in trouble on LinkedIn and Facebook all the time because I just say what I think. And it's not a particular opinion is
Okay,
the thing.
okay, I get
It's
it. I get.
just that I think people are not either being truthful with themselves or
All right.
what the situation is. So I have a tendency to call folks out a bit,
Okay.
and they
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've got a fun question for you because
sure.
this is really to, if you're going for an interview at somewhere like McKinsey or Baines, they always throw one of these fun questions in, and it really try to show how you think about things. And it's a bit of an odd question. Here it goes. What do you think of garden gnomes?
I think that some people like them, and I
Hmm.
think for some people they are precious, just like those little you're supposed to collect them precious moments, with the big eyes and that sort of thing. Personally, I don't want them in my house or my garden. Um, but you got to respect people for having their choices. And so I think garden gnomes are great for those whom they entertain.
Okay, cool. We'll come back to you a little bit later. So let's come back to the show today. About personal branding. I had something to maybe kick us off. Mastering job offer negotiations. We talked about this when we first talked about coming on the show, and it's something that you do a lot with your clients. So maybe you can give us a bit of a high level insight. What does this mean?
You are negotiating for the purpose of getting something that you want. In order to get that something that you want, there are some techniques that you need to use. The primary ones, of course, being keeping the subject on um, the mutual gains for both parties, mutual interests, having lots of options. Well, if you won't give me this, what about that? So that you ultimately wind up with a package of plenty of things that you want, and the key to all of that is justifying what you ask for, so that you're not just willy-nilly. People say, well, you don't want to accept this offer. Well, what do you want? Well, I would like $60 million. You better have a darn good reason.
So let me expand on that. So, what I think I hear you saying, there seems to be a strategy or a structure to negotiating, that we should implement. And one of the other podcasts I did was how to bring strategy into your life. It's not enough just to have a plan, but if and let me just read this to you. It was quite interesting.
Sure.
It said, so I was quoted: "Strategy is a response to a challenge that keeps you from achieving your ambitions." And it's interesting. It reminded me of that today because what you're saying is that if you don't have a strategy to negotiate, you won't achieve your ambition. Would that be right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If you go into your negotiation with one solution to the problem and nothing else, and they say no, then where are you going from there?
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. So let me come back to we'll come back to the strategy piece. The other thing was we talked briefly about brand, and you introduced it a little bit as being important when negotiating a job position.
Mhm.
Sharee, just tell me, how do you correlate your personal brand to a negotiation versus when you don't have a personal brand and you're trying to negotiate? What's the comparison?
Well, I'm going to give up a little bit of my secret sauce right now. When you think about your personal brand, you're thinking about your story of who you are and the value that you bring and your hopes and aspirations. When you create, say, a resume or the stories that you tell in interviews and negotiations and networking, those sorts of things, those all come from your brand. The stories are to illustrate your brand. And if your justifications for your requests when you're negotiating are based on those stories and those um, bits and pieces that represent you as a brand, it's going to be more believable to people. It's going to be more persuasive because that's what they've been talking to you about this whole time.
That's interesting. So I and my audience are all probably from the tech industry. What
Mhm.
would be interesting in the experiences you've had, are there any examples that you could think of somebody who's got a good brand, that maybe we could relate to? That you could tell. You don't have to name the person, but just an example of something what looks like a good brand.
I don't want to call anybody out, so what I will do is say a good brand is this.
Okay.
If when you hear words, phrases, or a certain story, you think of that person, that is a good brand. If when you think about a problem, there's somebody you think of, that person has a good brand. If you're thinking about what equipment you want to put in your studio and you think of the maker of the equipment that you have in your studio right now as the solution to your problem, that's a good brand.
So can I just jump in there? So
Mhm.
creating a brand is not an easy task, and it's not going to be
Correct.
something that you can talk about here. But let me ask you, do you help people create brands for themselves? Is that part of what you help your
Mhm.
clients do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We may even start with some psychometric testing so that they look at their personality and their star qualities or their superpowers and how those have followed them throughout their career and how they have grown and been built. And again, as I said earlier, those things that you love to do, that you enjoy doing, that you feel like you do better, than everybody else. And as you go through your career, you're getting testimony to that too when you get your measurable results or your commendations or your awards.
yeah, it's clearly important from what you're saying. Your brand supports your narrative when you're negotiating and making requests in a job offer situation, correct?
Yes.
So brand is part of it, but what about other parts of justifying your request? Because you said something like that just earlier. You better
Mhm.
have the answers for why you're asking for your ask. So give us a bit of wisdom about this, please.
People will do things or buy things or bring things into their lives if they feel like they make sense. So that's the simplest possible way I can say it. If you can make your request make sense to the people of whom you're asking, then the likelihood of them agreeing to it or being willing to work with you on how we can get as close to that as possible is greater. So basically, you simply make a request and you give a reason for why you're asking for that. Maybe it's because you created this system that someone needed in their, to streamline their offices. And all through your interview process, they've been asking you questions about the system you created, and you've been telling them the stories of that system you created, and you know that that's a priority for them. If you make your request based on bringing them that priority problem that they need solved or that priority solution to their problem, then that's going to sound like a reasonable next step to them. Say yes to this guy.
So it sounds like you yourself, if you're in a situation, is really got to recognize the value from the questioning that they're doing with you. So your personal value starts to get recognized and bring it a different way as
Mhm.
they start asking questions, and you realize you're able to answer those questions. And I guess at some point your value starts to go up when you starting to give them answers to questions that they didn't even know the answers to themselves. But it's recognizing that they're doing that, and that's a very pertinent point to say, well, this sort of justifies why I need my demands or requests for the job.
Everybody has to answer to somebody.
Hmm.
So somebody is going to ask them why they chose you.
Right.
Give them the reason. Make it
Got it.
easy for them.
So in some of the work that you do, I would guess, let me take a step back from that. I do know a lot of people that I help coach in their careers. They always fall over at the interview, and I think things like this, they just don't know how to formulate and structure. So in the work that you do with clients, do you help them get to a place where they know how to structure, their value and articulate that value? Do you have systems and methodologies to do that?
Yes. Yes, we do. Are you asking me what those are?
Well, more than I'm not asking you to share them because that's obviously part of your IP. But if you have them, what's the overarching message you can give about that in terms of importance and the necessity of maybe sitting down with somebody like yourself, to actually build that framework?
Everything you need to build the talk that you're going to talk, the presentations that you're going to make of yourself, your values, your skills, your abilities, your accomplishments, all of that is your brand.
Oh, that's quite insightful. That is quite insightful.
That's the point.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's a light bulb moment. That's really, really interesting. Okay, let me switch gears a little bit.
Mhm.
Another topic is all to do with integrity. How about an advantage in being honest in your salary negotiations? Do you have a thought about this? I mean, I got to say, I believe there are people out there that don't tell the complete truth about themselves. And it's sort of this fine line whether you should or you shouldn't, because if you're totally honest, do you get the job? And if you're dishonest, you get the job and you can't do the job. Will somebody persevere with you to get you to the right place? What's your view of that?
I think it's critical. I have an article on LinkedIn about this very thing because I think it is critical, as was uh, quoted in Shakespeare, I believe it was Macbeth, the truth will out. And if you do not tell the truth in your interviews and your salary negotiations, you may wind up having to spend your entire work time with that company looking over your shoulder, wondering if you're going to get caught. So
Right.
you're distracted. You're not going to do your best job. But the other thing is that generally you do get found out. You are just not performing as you said you could, or perhaps they find out that you didn't have the certification that you said you had, or the skill, or maybe you put yourself out there that you were good at sales as well as the technical side of things, and they find out that you are running off customers. You know, it doesn't have to be a direct thing. It's going to be some little something that's going to come out, and then it's going to be what my husband calls a rolling ball of butcher knives as the situation heightens and becomes sharper and more difficult for you as they find out more and more and more, because now they're looking for
Yeah. How
what
big a problem?
isn't true.
How big a problem do you think this is? Because I remember in my last job, I used to work for Oracle, and I used to employ a lot of people globally. And I got to say, there are some people who ace the interview, and it caused me to change my interview technique because when they turn up for the job, they clearly misrepresented their capabilities.
Mm.
And how big a problem do you think this is for any industry where people misrepresent themselves, get a job, and then it certainly costs the company a lot of money?
Yeah, I think it's a big problem. Um, I come from advocacy and healthcare as a background, and the amount of people that are fired for poor performance in the healthcare field and just walk on down the street to the very next nursing home and get a job doing the exact same thing they were doing before, uh, because they're good interviewers,
Right.
and they don't bring up why they were fired. They don't bring up that they were fired. So those kinds of things follow their work history, but the problem is that it's not just them. It's the people that they are working with. You know, people's lives are at stake in the healthcare
Mm,
industry, sometimes in the tech industry too.
yeah.
Um, you aren't doing things that can be taken lightly, and if someone's confidential information gets out all over the dark web, well, we're we're in trouble.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
you're right. You're absolutely right. And I, I'm glad you see the same thing because, as an employer or as a manager in an organization, it's a nightmare because we end up, having to manage those people out and bring people in. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars to just cycle somebody in and out. Um, it's an interesting one. But then again, is it justified because somebody's desperate for a job? I guess the moral compass says no, it isn't. But how do you stop people? And it's a difficult one, I guess.
right. You can't. People will do what they do, and then you are gonna I think they say that the average is 4 times your annual salary to replace you. Um, so, the costs are dear. You can just put it out there. There are people, I was reading someone's post, today on LinkedIn, and, I'm sorry that I can't remember who it was, but the post was about, a hiring process where people were invited to interview at the corporate headquarters and all of that. And after they finished and did their whole VIP day and whatever, the interviewers then went and had a meeting with the driver who had been assigned to them to find out how that driver had been treated during the course of this VIP day. And if people had been unkind or not courteous or, treated that person like they weren't even there, they weren't hired.
Oh wow, that's an amazing technique.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I thought, gee, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to double check, because most hires are made from a gut reaction. So,
Absolutely, yeah,
what a
absolutely.
great way to
I mean,
double check your gut.
yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I think I developed a technique eventually after being let down so many times, where the first interview, I would explain my problem statement for the company, I say, hey, this is what we want to do. Do you think you can do that job? Obviously, it takes a bit longer to explain. And if they say yes, and I said, okay, I'm going to invite you back to a second interview. I want you to present how you solve that problem. And if then you solve that problem, then I'll take you to the next stage of the interview, almost like a practical, and it's in business. And what was interesting, I actually had 20% of the people drop out who had said, yes, we'll come back. And then during the 7 days that I gave them to prepare something, they called me and said, actually, this is not for me. And it actually weeded them
Mhm.
out a little bit. So that was a technique I used, which was interesting. Um, but it caused people to sort of put their hand up and go, actually, I can't do it. And I think sometimes when you give people the option in a respectful way, they realize they before they go too deep, they're just going to back out. I think part of the problem is, do employers do enough to explain to people what the job is as well? And I'm not sure they do.
I would agree with that as well. Um, Absolutely.
Mm.
Because there are many parts to a job. Every job has some crap parts in it, and you've gotta do the crap things as well if you're gonna have the job of your dreams, because it has to be done. It's a part of it. But very often, that's not talked about with people. So they are dismayed, to say the least, when they discover that that's a part of the job.
Mm. Interesting. So let me just switch to another part of negotiation. It's promotions.
Mhm.
You're in the job, you've been there for a while. How different is it negotiating for a promotion than it is actually negotiating for a new job? What's your thoughts on that?
The difference is that they know you and they know what you are capable of. You are a known entity when you are going for the raise or the promotion. So, you're not having to convince them of your capabilities as much as you would be as a new person coming in.
Good point.
But you still have to offer them the evidence of what you have done for me lately. So, in that respect, it's similar. But the thing about preparing to negotiate a raise or a promotion is that that starts long before you ask for it. You
Oh,
can be
tell me
doing
more.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is something you can just build in to your day to day on the job. When you make those reports about what's been accomplished this week, you do your milestones, make a thing of it. Go ask to sit down with the boss. So I'd like to go over a couple of things with you about our most recent project. And then sit down for 5 minutes. Your boss is going to take 5 minutes to hear about that story. Talk about it with that person. It also not only does it keep them up to speed on what you're doing, what you're accomplishing as you're accomplishing it, but it also gets you used to doing the talk that you're going to need to do when you say, and we've done this and this and this. So can I have a promotion?
Right. Very good. I think that's something that anybody out there is listening to this who wants to use Sharee to help them in their career advancement, come and learn that technique because you can't just rock up asking for a promotion. Um, but let me just twist that a little bit or switch that a
Sure.
little bit. What happens? I've been working in an organization for 1 year for one boss. I've done lots of things for that boss, and then recently there's been a lot of um, uh, movement in the tech world in terms of job layoffs. But once the
Mhm.
job layoffs take place, internally there's a lot of restructuring that takes place as a result of that because they have to reorganize. And a lot of people, and I'll say me myself included, have been happily working along for one boss, and next minute we've been shifted and we work for a new boss just before the year end, and that new boss doesn't know anything about us, and everything we've done has disappeared in terms of that lead up to a promotion. I sort of myself feel like I don't have any grounds to ask for a promotion anymore. What are your thoughts with people like that?
I would say, and of course, with a client, I would create the actual strategy for it, but I would say ask for a meeting. Sit down with that boss, let them know what the history is, what the progress has been, and that you and your boss were working toward this.
Right.
Don't know if don't know if you know, they had time to talk to you about where the whole staff is in our efforts and, are looking for raises and promotions, but it's almost time for that to happen, and you don't know anything about any of us. So, you know, I'm gonna suggest maybe some of these meetings, with folks. I'll
This is
start.
where Yeah, and this is where somebody like yourself can help somebody formulate a strategy to engage correctly into the organization and make sure you get heard.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely, because you have to be heard and you have to be comfortable with being heard and you have to be confident in being able to say your brand to the new guy.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, cool. Um, in terms of our core topic today, before I switch gears, I want to ask you this one question. It's
Mhm,
a bit of a tongue twister, for me anyway. And I think it's about seeing the perspective of the employer. And this is it, is the benefits of seeing negotiation of benefits like employers do. I don't know if that makes sense. So am I, you know, how do basically it's looking from the employer's vista and saying, how are they looking at the benefits of the organization in any negotiation?
when people get ready to negotiate their job offers, they very often only think about what they want. They don't think about it in terms of the employers have authority to give, because not everybody has total authority over everything unless you're working directly for the CEO. Uh, you know, everyone has to answer to somebody. If you can sit down and take a look at how benefits are structured in your company and how they have been negotiated in the past, and what might be negotiable about them and what alternatives, especially if they're no or low cost alternatives, um, that you could offer as alternatives to your initial request and still be happy with what you get. Those kinds of things are talking to the employers from the perspective that they're coming to the table with. So it's like speaking their language with understanding. And when you're using the negotiation principles of talking about what is of mutual benefit, that's exactly what we're talking about there. What sorts of things are of mutual benefit to the employers as well as to you?
That's interesting because quite often when we turn up at the table to negotiate for our own promotion, we often are thinking only about the cash element, whereas an
Mhm.
employer has got value and everything else, and that's probably a challenge.
Hundreds of dollars of value for instance, people who um, have to work in a downtown area and they have to pay for their parking. You know, well, let's just negotiate that I don't have to pay for my parking, or that you give me a parking allowance, or something of
Yes,
that nature, so that I am not at an extra cost to be here every day for you.
interesting. That's good. Okay, thanks. It's been really insightful up to now. I just want to switch gears back to you a little bit.
Mm,
A little bit on this. What's one idea that experts in your field say that you disagree with?
I'm a very agreeable person. I believe that everybody has a right to their opinions. Um, And it's more that I don't necessarily disagree with people, but I disagree with the way things are applied. People talk about uh, corporate culture, and they have great things that they say about it, and you know, that sort of thing. But then you find that they're hiring people who don't trust people to do the job they were hired to do. And more people leave for that very reason than for any other reason. So those kinds of applications are the kinds of things that I disagree with. I don't disagree at all with having a great corporate culture and you know, um, lifting people up from within and all of that. I do disagree with some of the ways that it is applied.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Here's another question for you. Who are your favorite people to follow in your field of expertise? So who do you look up to, or who do you think are the leaders of thought in your field?
Because I specialize in negotiation, I am fond of Ury and Fisher, who wrote the book Getting to Yes, and the book Getting Past No, and all of their um, excellent work that they did for Harvard's program. Even though they get older, they are still, to me, fascinating people for the way they think, the fairness that they brought into negotiation, even though negotiation can be hard and people can be really difficult in it. They are my favorites as far as negotiating. As far as coaching, I started out in a time where Bernard Haldane was the kind of the founder of career coaching. He started the programs. He was English, as a matter of fact, and started the programs for the U.S. government that helped military service people transition into civilian life. Fascinating man, and his concepts of the dependable strength, those things that you do well, that you enjoy doing, and that you think you do as well or better than most throughout your career, are holding true even today.
I'm gonna get a book list off you afterwards. I'm gonna put them in the links below, because they sound like fascinating people to follow, and I think our audience should get a chance to look them up as well. So we'll put that
Well, let me
information in
throw
the link.
another book in if I can then.
Okay, go for it.
I'll have to look up the author. I can't believe I can't think of the author at this moment, but the book is called Your Perfect Right.
Oh, wow.
And it is the book that taught me that, yes, nice girls can say no.
Definitely. We'll stick that in the book list as well, because
Okay.
everybody I've spoken to on the show and previous episodes have all got book lists, which are really, really fascinating. Okay. What is your favorite part of your job?
Negotiation strategy. I love it.
So what fulfills you about that?
Figuring out the ways to say things so that they make sense to people and so that they do support what you're asking for, and the light bulbs that go on in people's eyes when they realize, "I really am worth this."
Okay. So a bit of a rapid fire now. Um, I know we talked about books. Which is your favorite book of all time?
Well, although it sounds a little bit, pageant girl, I'm fascinated by the Bible because it's got so much drama and, amazing stories and, action hero stuff. It's amazing. Plus, it's full of what appear to be, conflicting, guidances that you then have to pray about, meditate about, think about whatever it is you do about those kinds of conflicts that come to your brain. So it's always got something to cause you to think.
So what's your favorite movie or show?
I was just talking about this the other day with a colleague of mine. I love the movie The Kid.
Okay.
It's a Bruce Willis movie, and it is the most not Bruce Willis of all the Bruce Willis movies there are.
We're coming to the end of the podcast, and I wanted to ask you a few questions about you. So, question: where can people go to learn more about you?
Oh, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay,
Absolutely. That's the best place to get me and get my attention.
and I'll put your links down in the comments along with the book list. What can people expect from you next? What's coming up for you that people should look out for?
I'm putting some of my basic programs that require training and not just coaching onto online courses.
Okay.
So I'm excited about those. The first one, the pilot, is coming out for Negotiate Better Salary and Benefits Now, which will walk people all the way through the steps of using your brand, getting the right mindset, knowing why you should negotiate, when, where, and how to negotiate, and then closing the deal, of course. So I'm excited about that. There is a workshop coming out as well online that's going to be about using your personal brand in 5 uh, career search strategies to boost that, to put it out there. So, there are going to be several programs coming about. Those are the 2 main ones right now.
Awesome. And you'll publish them on LinkedIn as and when they get released, I guess.
Yes. Yes, I
Okay,
will.
awesome. Okay. One final thought that you want to leave our listeners with.
You always have it in you to do what you want to do for your career. There really is nothing that can stop you. Whatever your obstacle is, there is a way around it.
Thank you. That's really, really cool. How can listeners support you and your work?
Engage with me on LinkedIn, have conversations with me. That would be absolutely wonderful. Read my articles on there, do my programs.
Awesome.
Those kinds
Awesome.
of things are great.
All the links are going to be down below. That's great. Um, okay. So, what was your favorite part of this episode today?
You you told me that I didn't answer your question, and maybe go back and do it again. I love it when people don't mind saying to me, "That's not what I wanted," or "You jumped the gun," or "You didn't do that the way I expected." I That was fun.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad you weren't offended. Okay, well, we've come to the end of this episode. I want to say thank you very much to Sharee. It's been a true pleasure to have you on the show. I hope you all enjoyed the show today. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit reminders to the Hidden Heroes of Tech on YouTube, and you'll have the full video episode there. And it's also available on audio on any of the major podcast platforms. You'll be able to hear Sharee talk about some of the wisdoms today from Apple or Spotify and all those others. So, with that, I'd like to say I look forward to you joining me on the next episode. And goodbye from Sharee. Thank you very much.